Thank you. Tom? It's okay. Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much, Laura. Want to welcome everybody to our February board meeting for the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. It is Wednesday, February 15th, and we are starting at 1:30. I understand we do have a quorum. We'll do roll call in just a minute since most of our directors are coming via virtual online. I want to welcome Director Eric Knight, who's here with us, Vice Chair Mark Joseph, and staff. Laura, let's have roll call, please. Leon Garcia.
Here.
Mark Joseph.
Here.
Donald Williams.
Present.
Kevin Eisenberg.
Here.
Liz Alessio. Here. Scott Sedgley.
Here.
Paul Doring.
Here.
Anna Shuto.
Here.
Margie Moeller.
Here.
Eric Knight.
Here.
Tom Collette. And 2 confirmed absences from Director Pedroza and Director Ramos. We do have a quorum. Excellent. Director Knight, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Knight. And I also want to welcome Tom Collette to this meeting too. So we are on to item number 4. That's the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? And if not, is there a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
Chair Alicio,
Approves.
sorry, if it's appropriate now, we're at the point of consent. I would ask that we pull item 9.5.
Thank you. We'll do that when we get to the consent
Thank you.
calendar. Yes, consent items. Thank you. So I heard outside of Director Knight regarding the consent agenda, I think I heard a motion and a second. Was that Director Joseph? Did you motion and did Director Mueller second?
No,
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we have a second. Director Mueller, did you second or first?
I think she was the first.
I
And I'll
will
be a
go with
second.
making a motion then.
Okay, so all right, so we have Director Mueller making the motion to accept the agenda, and we have Director Joseph seconding. Very good. Roll call, please, Laura. Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams,
Yes.
Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio. Yes. Scott Sedgley,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Moeller,
Yes.
and Eric Knight.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. We're on to item number 5, which is public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? Not seeing anybody here in the boardroom. Not seeing anybody online either. That look here? Okay. So then moving on to item number 6, and this is the chairpersons, board members, MTC, and ABAG update. Let's start with just chairpersons or board members. Is there any update anybody wants to provide? And if not, we'll go on to see if there's an MTC update. Not seeing, and I know I see Anna Shuto.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank NVTA, Diana and Danielle, who came to the tree planting. NVTA hosted it with the Vine Trail, so we were able to plant 60 to 70 trees at our community Forest. It was an incredible event. There were lots of young people that came out for it. It was a really positive experience. I took my daughter to it, and I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Director
We
Schuster.
love our tree plantings in St. Helena.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that update. Director Garcia.
Yes, update from ABAG. Attended the retirement party for Teresa McMillan, our executive director, who served rather during an incredible time. It was a merger of ABAG and MTC. As one can expect, there were a lot of issues strongly felt to be worked through, and she did an incredible job. So we certainly thanked her for her years of service with us and pursuing now a new executive director. Thank you.
Thank you. She will be missed, I know, by many. Thank you so much. And I don't think we have it. Do we have an MTC update you want to provide us?
I'm
Thank you.
going to kind of spoil a little bit of the fun because Director Pedrosa is not here today,
Yes.
but I did want to let you know that on January 24th, almost 5 years since the passing of the Bay Area state-owned bridge toll increases, the Supreme Court upheld the lower court's decision, effectively dismissing the suit brought by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association on Regional Measure 3. So this means that that we will be seeing some of that money flow after some administrative appellate court tweaks that have to be done. So MTC staff reported at the Programming Allocations Committee meeting that there is still a few weeks of that left to go, and they'll be focused on Regional Measure 3 projects that have used local funds as part of the letter of no prejudice process. So NVTA is expected to receive $20 million for State Route 29 South County highway improvements and $20 million from the North Bay Transit Program. Both of those programs we did issue a letter of no prejudice on those, and I don't know what that really means yet. So we're going to be working with MTC to understand sort of the flexibility, given that we've already delivered the projects that we committed to as part of the program. We'll also be pursuing a portion of the region-wide, which is about $100 million in safe routes to transit. And then there's another $150 million region-wide for the Bay Trail program. And so stay tuned for that. But it's really exciting news. We've been waiting a long time for it. So,
That's very exciting.
yeah.
Very exciting.
And then just more interesting news. The nominating committee for the commission chair has nominated Director Pedrosa for another 2-year term,
Excellent.
and Nick Josephowitz from San Francisco as another as vice chair for another 2-year term. But that still needs to be approved at the February 22nd commission meeting. In closed session, the commission identified a candidate for the next executive director. So that will also be announced at that meeting. We can't wait. Staff anxiously awaits that announcement. And the only other thing, some exciting news, is that the fiscal year 22-23 Transit Performance Initiative Call for Projects award recommendations went before the Programming and Allocations Committee. They approved it to go to the commission. The program was funded with $15 million in surface transportation program and congestion mitigation air quality funding out of the OBEG 3 program, and approximately $6 million in low carbon transit operations program, otherwise known as LC-TOP. And NVTA has recommended to receive $1,060,000 in those funds for improvements for passenger amenities and driver amenities and signage at the park and ride facility. So we're really excited about that. And I was going to include that in my direct report, but I just wanted to do a shout out to Tony Onorato, Rebecca Shank, and Libby Payan for working on that program. So, and that concludes the commission report.
That's a great report. Do we have any questions from any of our directors on anything that Executive Director Miller just updated us on regarding MTC? Vice Chair Joseph wants to do a victory dance. If you can't see it from there, he was dancing in his chair, especially for the South 29. Okay, very good. And then I think we're on to our Executive Director update. Then.
Great. Thank you so much. The first thing I'd like to do is welcome our 2 new directors, Eric Kevin Eisenberg and Tom Collette, who are participating, I believe, in the meeting for the first time. So welcome on behalf of NVTA staff. We look forward to working with you. Director Eisenberg is representing the city of Calistoga, and Director Collette is representing the Paratransit Coordinating Council. So in the news is Diana Meehan was featured on the Senior Moments radio spot speaking about the Elderly and Disabled Needs Assessment Program. So thank you for your time. And it was, I understand she has quite a radio voice. And I was profiled in Transit Weekly for my work as a small operators chair on the California Transit Association Small Operators Committee and participation in the Transit Operations Subcommittee that is working on the fiscal cliff. So that was kind of fun. The Accessible Needs Assessment Survey opened on January 16th and will remain open through February 28th. Is that practice? Okay, sorry, we have to take a break and leave.
For those on Zoom, we have an alarm going off, so we'll be exiting the building. Stand by. To those on Zoom, we will be returning momentarily. Okay. It's been a while since I've been part of a fire drill, and I want to report back that everybody was very orderly, and we were out the parking lot area. It seems like there's no smoke, no signs, so we are back to reconvene our meeting here. And Executive Director is going to continue her update.
Great, thank you so much. The Accessible Needs Assessment Survey opened on January 16th and will remain open through February 28th. As a reminder, this was part of the Elderly and Disabled Accessible Needs Assessment Plan that we're working on. Surveys can be taken online and paper copies have been distributed through several community partners. The consultant team has bilingual members who are will be in the area tomorrow visiting multiple sites that serve seniors and disabled populations, as well as riding the bus to assist people with filling out the survey. If board members want copies or a flyer to put on their social media or website, please contact Diana Meehan and she will provide them to you. Included in your packet is an op-ed in the Capitol Weekly summarizing the issues facing transit across the state. So, stay tuned for that. There's a lot of discussion in the Northern and Southern California areas, not a lot of agreement on what's needed. The MTC region is very focused on a 5-year gap measure. The Southern California operators are sitting a little bit better than the rest of us because they received a lot more of the stimulus funds. So they're looking for more long-term operational funds. There's also a letter to Governor Newsom from MTC Chair Pedrosa outlining the revised partnership agreement and summarizing the path ahead for delivering the State Route 37 project. Also good news, on February 8th, Caltrans certified the State Route 37 environmental document for the Sears Point to Mare Island project. That gives the consortium the green light to work on the design now. And we'll, given the RM3 funds, there's $100 million in RM3 funds for that project. So we will be talking very seriously with our partners on how that funding should be used. As noted by Director Chateau, the final acorn planting to mitigate for the tree felling on the Vine Trail was this last Saturday, February 11th at the St. Helena Community Forest. And I want to just thank Danielle and Diana for their participation. 25 people attended, including Director Chateau. The small but powerful contingency planted 83 trees. This added to the 186 trees that we've already planted. It totals 269 trees, and the mitigation requirement was only for 132. So we went above and beyond. I just want to thank Team NVTA, Grant, Rebecca, Diana, Danielle, and Valerie. Were you at the planting, Lynette? No. Okay. So whoever else was at the planting, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Let's see. I'm also pleased to announce that Caltrans approved finally the project initiation documents for the State Route 29 improvements in American Canyon. So this opens the door for us to start working on the project approval and environmental document phase. And we have gathered most of the money. And if we can't get the rest of it, we certainly have RM3 to rely on now for that purpose. But we're hoping that we can actually identify other funds so that we can preserve that for later phases of the project. And then finally, I'd like to acknowledge Kathy Alexander. Is she not here anymore? She's disappeared. This is so typical when I want to acknowledge somebody. If I say it really loud, Kathy wears many hats at NVTA, as you can see right now, as she's dealing with this. She's probably outside talking to firemen as we speak. She serves as the secretary for a number of NVTA's committees, including the Technical Advisory Committee. She responds to requests from staff for supplies, issues with the building, including its persistent HVAC challenges. She responds to customer service requests and visitors at the front desk. She participates in outreach events. She schedules meetings, organizes events, and thankless other responsibilities. Most significantly, Kathy deals with a number of challenges associated with the unhoused population that frequent the Saskell Gateway Transit Center, the Redwood Park and Ride, and the Amola Park and Rides. This involves storing and retrieving lost or misplaced items, returning grocery carts, removing bicycles that have been chained to fences, poles, and sometimes doors. She cleans up their trash around the Saskell Gateway Transit Center and works with ABODE and the city services to address the extremely stressed members of this population. And she does so with kindness, patience, and a lot of heart. So thank you, Kathy, for all that you do for NVTA. And I guess I'll read this to her later, or you can maybe share the recording with her. So, okay. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Miller. A lot of accolades and well deserved. So I want to congratulate you. Put a thank you out to Diana Meehan, because I'm a part of the Seniors Accessibility Assessment, which has been great. I also know that Vision Zero has been started, and Vice Mayor Joseph is on that with Director Shuto. There's just so much work being done on behalf of this agency. I can be more proud to be on the board and as chair. So are there any questions from any of our directors?
Just not a question, just a comment. This has really been worth it to come down today. Getting Measure 3 and our project initiation document approved. It's going to make my report to council next week all the more exciting. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I want to thank also and welcome Director Eisenberg. It's nice to have a face to the name Director Eisenberg. So welcome to that.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 8, which is the Caltrans update. Amani from Caltrans will present her update. Amani, there you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. This is Amani. I'm the Office Chief and Regional Project Manager in Caltrans for Napa County. I'm going to share what's the updates for the projects in different phases. And I think thanks, Kate, for mentioning the multimodal corridor improvements projects in City of American Canyon. The project study report and project development support has been approved on February 6th, that it gives a chance to move ahead with the environmental phase. We have 3 projects in the project initiation report phase, and this one will be moved to the environmental. In the environmental phase, we have so far an active 7 projects. Some updates regarding to the Turkey Creek Bridge replacement, which is in the City of Napa. The approved project report is due to be approved by end of this month in order to move ahead with the design development. The second project with updates is the 5-way intersection Napa and City of Napa. This is an oversight project with the NVTA and City of Napa. And the co-op agreement has been sent for review. And from our side in Caltrans, we commenced with a project change request in order to move the SHOP funding from fiscal year 23-24 to 24-25 for having a secured fund from locals. So thank you for being able to help with this project. The third for environmental is the storm damage in 5 locations in the County of Napa with a cost estimate of 4.3 million. And the environmental phase has been completed last week, and it's going to move to the design development phase. For projects which are currently in the design, we have 15 active projects. And just ahead on some of them with updates, we have the rumble stripes, which is in various locations in the County of Napa. The end of this phase is going to be by end of this month or beginning of March. And we have 0Q690 project. This is storm damage in County of Napa in 2 locations, which is constructing rock stop protections to prevent further slope and washout and pavement repair. This project, it has been awarded last week and is going to commence construction by March. So this will be moved to construction. We have a project 4J410. This is a drainage improvement in American Canyon to rehabilitate culverts with 3.3 million construction capital. The bids opening will be target on next month. And finally is the 0K630. This is bridge rail replacement in 3 bridges and upgrading rails with construction capital of 7.1 million. And the target to advertise on March 20th. Finally, going to construction, we have 12 active projects. And one of the major ones is the SOSCOL improvement projects and which is target to be completed by December 2025. And 2J570, this project, which is a Cable Creek storm damage repair, has been completed and now to be archived. And by this, I conclude my report. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Amani. Do we have any questions from any of our directors? Not seeing any. Okay, well, thank you very much. Great
Thank you, everyone.
update. A lot of good work being done there. Moving on to our consent agenda, we know that Director Knight would like to pull 9.5. Outside of that item, are there any other items that anybody else wants to pull, or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with exception of 9.5?
Move
Move
approval.
to approve with the exception of 9.5.
Very good. We have a motion by Director Knight and a second by Director Garcia. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams,
Yes.
Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Moeller,
Yes.
and Eric Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. So 9.5 is the purchase order 23-P3003 with Platinum Chevrolet to acquire a new utility truck. This is pages 31 through 43. I'm going to hand this over to Director Knight and see if you have a question that we can answer.
Thank you,
staff
Chair
can answer.
Alicio. I just sent an email this morning to Executive Director Miller and to Program Manager Schenk, just asking a question if there was an electric vehicle option for that vehicle. They returned the email promptly, and as usual, they are always looking for electric vehicle options. But in this case, the vehicle, the service needs of the vehicle this vehicle is not available currently in an electric truck, and timing for even a vehicle, an electric truck, may be into late 2024. So I appreciated their response and I'd be happy to move this consent item if there's.
Thank you. And if I recall, because we also had this discussion, I had this discussion with Director Miller too, is that the way in which that the truck needs to be able to pull a bus is just exceeds the capabilities right now too. But Director Miller, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just said, yeah, I mean, it actually is not designed to pull it because we need, really like a diesel powered tow truck for that purpose, but it can push a bus off a road if it's stalled in a lane. And so electric vehicles probably don't have that power, that capacity right now. I think that the technology is evolving, and certainly we will continue to look for replacing all vehicles when we can with cleaner vehicles. But in this instance, it's not possible.
It's not an option. Thank you. So I don't know if there's any other questions. I know we have a motion by Director Knight to go ahead and approve this consent item.
I'll second it and point out, I think it's over 20 years old, the truck that's being replaced. So
Yeah, good point.
it needs to be updated.
Thank
Just a
you.
comment. Thank you, Executive Director Miller, for your report, and thank you.
Absolutely. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams,
Yes.
Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley,
Yes.
Paul Doring, Director Doring, can you hear me? See him.
Yes.
Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Moeller,
Yes.
and Eric Knight.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. We're on to item number 10, which is regular items. 10.1 is informational only, the Vine Transit update. And Rebecca Schenk is going to provide this, and these are on pages 92 through 98.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alessio and members of the board. My name is Rebecca Schenk, and I am the Program Manager for Public Transit here at NVTA, and we'll be giving you a transit update today. So lots of kind of upgrades will be our kind of general theme. We're doing some maintenance upgrades. Our forklift, which is a 1995, there you can see kind of in the top picture there in the yellow, continually run into an issue where we're no longer kind of routinely able to use that, nor to lift things like our EV chargers and things into place when they are delivered. And so luckily, when we put the maintenance project out to bid, we had the new forklift is part of that, and we were able to get that delivered early. And so we have that pretty new green forklift there. Maintenance is very excited to the point where they're discussing maybe getting a nice cover for it and having it live inside. They don't even want to take it out, so it never ends up looking like the one above. And then we'll also be retiring the utility truck that was part of item 9.5, and that new truck should be available within 15 days of signing that purchase order, which we hope to do this week. And so we will have that on board. We are doing some upfitting to it, but it should be ready almost.
We're changing the mics out, everybody, in Zoom. Just a moment.
Right, perfect. I've got a green light again. So we've also done some software upgrades to our automated passenger counters. If you can imagine, when you walk on one of your buses, one of us isn't standing there counting you every day. It basically shoots out 2 lasers. If you break the first laser first, then the second, you're getting on. Kind of the opposite. If you break laser 2 first and then 1, you're getting off. And so we have the same hardware in place. What we're changing is our software upgrades. So anyone maybe who's ever maybe works in Napa County or is a supervisor knows that it's hard to get data from outside of the county network into inside of the county network. So using our prior software license, we had a very tricky system set up to get the data from the buses at the yard at Jackson Street outside the network into inside the network here at Napa County. But now that we have it set up to be cloud-based, and our reporting will be much simpler, and we can get you kind of answers to your questions a lot earlier. Just wanted on the next slide to show a couple of kind of beta tested things that we're playing around with, in that we can do ridership by, say, things like political jurisdiction, things that were not easy questions to answer previously. If you're kind of looking at the top there, I know it's small, but what it's basically showing is, okay, passengers on, right? And by far the tallest bar there, right, is indeed the city of Napa, given its population and our number of routes there. But what can be interesting then on the bottom one is, okay, if you look instead as at number of riders at passenger miles. So basically saying that, like, okay, if one person gets on and goes 100 miles, right, they count as 100 in some ways on that in terms of the number of passenger miles that they're going. If you get 2 people on and they go 5 miles, they count as 10, right? And so that tells a very different story in that, right, City of American Canyon still has our highest number of passenger miles, say, but when you look at something like American Canyon had been quite low in terms of the number of passengers, their passenger miles are actually quite high, and that they are traveling way outside of American Canyon. Say they're going up to Calistoga, they're going over to Sassoon, or they're going down to Contra Costa, to the El Cerrito del Norte BART station, and have a lot of passenger miles. But then again, right, you look at something at St. Helena, and most of their circulation, given the number of passenger miles they have is happening within St. Helena. And Yountville kind of pulls their weight too when you think about it in terms of passenger miles. I'm always impressed by especially people from the Veterans Home venturing down to Napa. And so these are just different things that we'll be able to do with the new software system, and you'll be seeing in the future. On the next set of upgrades, kind of both app and payment upgrades. So the Ride the Vine app, which is what you use to reserve your ride if you are going in Calistoga, St. Helena, American Canyon, for Yountville, as well as for the city of Napa. We did a new app for that. It was exciting in that we were luckily able to keep the same name, but you did have to download a new app and it's a new kind of booking associated with it. So you'll see kind of the steps and some of the marketing we did with that. What also is nice, it allows for in-app payment. Prior to this, the only way you could say pay for the American Canyon Transit was if you had your Clipper card on you, which we have a low Clipper rate of usage, or if you had, say, cash on hand, but we didn't have passes, say, specific to American Canyon Transit. But now you could make the purchase with your credit card prior to your ride arriving. So it gives you that option. And as Clipper 2.0 rolls out, you'll have the Clipper 2.0 payment option in there as well. And speaking of Clipper 2.0, the pilot installation occurred just 2 weeks ago on 2 of our buses, one Proterra and one BYD, our 2 electric buses. So we're going to kind of test those out over the next few weeks. And we're working to get on the Clipper 2.0 fleet schedule for Cubic, the operator, to come in and do our installations fleet-wide. Looks like they can do about 4 or 5 vehicles a day. So probably over about a 2-week period. So hopefully maybe when we talk to you in March or April, we'll have the full Clipper 2.0 system installed here in Napa. Luckily, they've been testing that out with SFMTA and some of the bigger groups. So we kind of know any bugs hopefully have been worked out, and we'll be ready to have Clipper available on all of our things. Yeah.
Can a quick question?
Yeah.
So if I have a Clipper card, do I need to get a new card, or
It
just?
will work. Yep. It'll be transferable and work on either. And then you have the option, if you're interested, you can upload that Clipper card onto your phone, and it can be like in your Apple Wallet, for example, and you can show that, and that will also work on the transponder. So same card. At some point, they're going to switch kind of the back end to all be on Clipper 2.0, but that's not something you need to.
Can I
worry
just
about.
add
Perfect.
something
Thank
that
you.
I think, so you can actually add your Clipper card to the Clipper app on your phone. I don't think that's a great way of doing it. I think what Rebecca is suggesting is to add it to your wallet, and you do it without even using your card. You can't transfer the money that you already have on your card to that, but it works a lot better. Yeah, and you do still kind of scan it. It's as though the phone becomes the card for all intents and purposes. That's outside of my purview. So that's handled at a regional level. Well, perfect. And so, yeah, so we're starting that transition to Clipper 2.0, which has been a long time coming. So we're happy to be part of that regional program. And then on the next slide, we're going to get into our passengers per revenue hour on the weekdays for the last quarter. So that is basically October through December of 2022. And so what you'll see on the far left there is the second quarter for the prior fiscal year for the local routes basically within the city of Napa. And so that represents the route N, S, W, and E, as well as the city of Napa on demand. Then in the middle, you'll see the prior quarter, which is from July to September. And then on the far right, you'll kind of see our current quarter. And so what you're seeing compared to the same quarter last year, so on far left to far right, that we are increasing our passengers per revenue hour, and we're just under 6, but we are lower than our prior quarter. And that kind of fits more with what we've seen historically in terms of the cyclical trends, and that during harvest and things, when the city and the county's population increases, a lot of other additional people are going to work and things. We do see higher ridership locally, and then it drops off some with vacations and things in that December and November timeframe. In the next slide, it's going to break down, say, that column on the right, which was this last quarter, and all the local routes, and it breaks it down individually. So you can basically see that our route N, which if you're familiar in Napa, is basically going out on 3rd Street, north on Jefferson, out to Rolfs Manor and back, is our highest performing route and has been for some time. It's about 11 passengers per revenue hour and is well above, say, our minimum thresholds that we had prior to COVID of 8 passengers per revenue hour. Coming in behind that are our Route S and Route E. Route S kind of serving the southern part in Amola, and Route E just runs a few times per day over to the Shelter and Shirtlift neighborhoods. And our Route W is quite low, and that has really a factor of not necessarily its ridership dropping off from, say, its prior quarter, but we have additional hours. We're now running that route
both clockwise and counterclockwise. And we're seeing that our clockwise ridership is quite strong, but that our counterclockwise ridership is not. And so that's something that we'll be looking in June, like, okay, does it make sense to have both of those? Or maybe we just stick with our original kind of clockwise route W and have shorter wait times in between, as opposed to running 45-minute headways, maybe 30-minute headways to get that back up. And then on demand, right? And we see this across the board just based upon the length of trips and the variety of trips, right? That's hovering just around 2 passengers per revenue hour, given with the whole coverage area that has to happen with the Vine on demand. On the next slide, what you'll see is our passengers per revenue hour on our regional routes. So our 10 up to Calistoga and St. Helena, our 11 down to Vallejo have always been kind of the stalwart routes of the system, even when they had maybe different names or were combined as one route. And so we have strong ridership on those two, but again, still below kind of our minimum thresholds pre-COVID. Then we have the 11X that goes to the Vallejo ferry terminal, which is quite low. And I really attribute that on some level to us as an agency, and that if on a given day when we have not had enough drivers and we're going to have a missed trip, what we end up doing is combining the 11X with the 29 so that we don't leave any, say, riders out, but they aren't treated then as individual routes. Then we have our Route 21 going over to Sassoon and our Route 29 over to the El Cerrito del Norte BART station. On the next slide, what you'll see is our on-demand service in all of our smaller jurisdictions. American Canyon continues to kind of punch above its weight and is above our pre-COVID threshold of 4 passengers per revenue hour, followed then by Calistoga, St. Helena, and Yountville. We did in December finally be allowed by the Veterans Administration to have the Yountville, I should say the Yountville B, that's my mistake, make its way up to the Veterans Home once again. So I think that will result in higher ridership on the Yountville trolley and better utilization moving forward. On the next slide, what you'll see is kind of our total ridership change, right? And so now it compares the prior quarter and then 1 year back, 2 years back, and we have to go 3 years back now in terms of quarters to get a period of time that was completely unaffected by COVID, which is what the kind of the blue that you see on the left. And so overall, say things like the Route 11, for example, or the Route 29 have kind of like continued to trend up and are getting closer to our pre-COVID levels, but there's been more variety, say, on the Route 10 and in the local city of Napa, which I was kind of talking about and attributing to before, that we have always had our highest ridership during harvest. And then we've kind of seen a cyclical decrease in that November, December timeframe. I also kind of want to emphasize, because obviously the local routes in the city of Napa are the ones that are furthest from where they had been prior to COVID. And I guess I want to emphasize that where it's not as though we have the same service prior to COVID and then we're comparing, say, apples to apples. We operate about 19% less service hours in the city of Napa than we did prior to COVID, and that we are operating only 4 fixed routes as opposed to the 8, and using on demand to cover those other 4. And as you might have remembered from my previous passengers per revenue slide, that always kind of results in lower passengers per revenue hour. And so using on demand, I won't get back to kind of previous ridership numbers. And then finally, on our next slide, it basically does the same thing, but just totally related to the shuttles in particular, as well as on the left is to VineGo, which is our ADA paratransit service. And so pretty much every VineGo, St. Helena, and American Canyon have all followed the trend where, you know, you bottom out at the beginning of COVID and then have increased each quarter thereafter, but it's more nuanced, for example, in Yountville and then in Calistoga. Although with Calistoga, when the prior quarter there in the gray, you operate because it's high tourist season, the Tourism Bureau pays for a second vehicle to be run there and hence just has increased capacity. So you will always kind of see that in Calistoga when in the winter months when they don't operate that second shuttle. And I think with that, that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Let's bring it to the board and see if we have any questions from the directors. Nobody here? Any directors online? No, Rebecca, I have a couple questions then, just really quick. As we looked at ridership, of course, the numbers in Napa are disappointing. And I know that we were on demand and we switched back to what we used to do prior to that. And you've also mentioned that operations are down by 19% and we're at half of the fixed routes that we used to have, it sounds like. And that's really due to the ridership and all, correct? Because we don't have the ridership to support it. We don't have drivers to support that. What's the biggest issue? One second.
All right. Third time's the charm.
That's right.
And we'll be discussing this in terms of more of like next steps at our board retreat. This will be really kind of the focus of it, specifically on the city of Napa. But what we're looking at is we have an overall driver shortage, right? On any given day, I'm usually about 10 drivers down from where I would need to be kind of at full capacity or to operate at levels that I did prior to COVID. And so we have between 70 and 75 drivers on kind of our full roster. So I should have done the math before I walked into here, but let's just say 10 divided by 70, and that gives you about the percentage of drivers that I'm down. And that has been consistent. So I don't have the option at this point in time of, say, going back to those 8 fixed routes immediately that we had prior. And so what we tried to operate is a hybrid system, basically to operate 4 fixed routes in our most populous areas, kind of going around the core, the north, south, east, and west, and then to cover the other areas so that we have coverage in all areas of Napa using that Vine on demand service where I have 2 to 3 drivers at all times doing that, but not the number of drivers that I would need to go back to fixed route. So it's somewhat, okay, we don't quite have the ridership, but I would be able to put more hours on the street if we had additional drivers. If you remember, just back in January of 2022, we did do that kind of the increase in pay to be kind of more comparable with Solano County, for example, who also is operated by TransDev and where we're recruiting a lot of drivers. We've kind of made that effort. We're doing things like bonuses to drivers who stay, and it's kind of progressed over time, trying to do other things to attract drivers. I feel like the new maintenance facility in and of itself, like just coming for an interview there as opposed to at our outdated trailer, will help our cause. But right now we're on the driver shortage side is the biggest driver.
Okay. The biggest driver is the driver.
Right.
Or lack of.
Yes.
Yes.
The lack of thereof. And you also don't want to like decrease your standards, right? In terms of, okay, and sometimes we can't even because we're funded by the Federal Transit Administration. For example, you have to be 21 and you can't be 18 or different things like that. And you want to have the kind of the best and safe drivers out there. So anyway, we can't take everyone or anyone. And so we have this game to play.
Well, I appreciate you trying to be innovative and bringing in more drivers. And then a question in terms of the areas where we have the new fancy electric buses that goes kind of back to your case in point of the new transit center versus a trailer. Are we seeing an increase of riders on those new cool electric buses? Is there a correlation there?
Yeah. We don't necessarily track it, say, in the city of Napa, like if there would be an electric bus on a given route on a given day. But in looking at some things for St. Helena earlier today, like on demand, for example, the highest month was December. That it had been in St. Helena all year. And that kind of probably correlated with increased marketing and having a pretty new bus up in St. Helena. And I think as we work through this and have the new maintenance facility and additional charging capacity, and we could have more electric buses throughout our fleet, I think you would see that more markedly.
Thank you very much. I'm done with my questions, but I see there's a question by Director Mueller.
Yes, thank you. I have a question regarding the on-demand shuttles and the numbers we looked at pre-COVID and post-COVID. Are all those shuttles running on pre-COVID hours?
They are not. No, it varies some by jurisdiction. We do not run as late into the evening in either Calistoga, St. Helena, or Yountville as we had prior to COVID. American Canyon never had late night hours. So in American Canyon, we're back to operating exactly the same hours, but not in the Up Valley jurisdictions.
And what would be the driver to get back to the late night hours? Are you looking at ridership, or is it lack of drivers, or? I
Yeah,
know
I'm-
coming into the summer, I've certainly heard from some of our local residents about having late night hours, and I just want to be able to reply to them.
Sure. Yeah, during COVID, for example, in Yountville specifically, we had stopped at 7 p.m. We did take board action about a year ago to move to 9 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. But right, it's short of the 11 p.m. we had before. I guess what I'm trying to play in terms of number of drivers that I have really at any given time of day is, okay, all right, so you don't want to have City of Napa take the brunt of it, right, by having not as many drivers as they need. So I'm trying to just cut some at the edges, right, and have one less Route 29, one less Route 21, say before COVID, and then just try to distribute the impact. But if we had more drivers, we had the funding to operate additional hours. So that's my big pitch point.
It's a tough position to be in as you try to move and make these adjustments and try to be as equitable as possible to address the needs out there. So we have, as this room is draining batteries right and left. One moment, everybody. Wow. How many of those microphones do we have back there in that closet? 4. Okay. This is 4. Fabulous 4. Okay. We got to.
But, oh, there we go. In talking actually with the school district this morning, for example, because there's some new state requirements that each of the school districts, so St. Helena, for example, has approached me, NVUSD in Napa and American Canyon, and I'm sure Calistoga, I'll be talking with them by the end of the week, but they have to have transit plans in place. And they're looking at, okay, because of my driver shortage, can I rely more on using my drivers and focusing that on elementary school, maybe even middle school? And then how can I work with the transit agencies to move more of my high schoolers around? And could there be some type of cost sharing associated with that? So they're basically running into the same problem, and we're recruiting basically the same set of people. So it is, I guess, more than just NVTA experiencing this. It's a school district as well on the bus driver side.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions. This is just informational, so we'll move on. Oh, I do see Director Shuto and then then we have a public comment. It looks like Justin maybe wants to speak, but Director Shuto.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for working with the schools, different parents, and then the school district has also talked to me about this and the need. I sit on a committee, an equity committee actually up on the St. Helena Unified School District. And we identified one of the needs is getting kids to after school sports when you look at who's able to participate and who cannot participate. So I don't have any of the answers yet, but I just get very excited when I hear that we're actually all talking and communicating together and figuring out how we can solve the need. So thank you.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Our number one trip and on-demand after school is to take kids from the high school over to the Boys and Girls Club, or the middle school over to the Boys and Girls Club there in St. Helena. So they're always looking for different after-school activities, and hopefully we could broaden that reach beyond the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes,
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair Joseph. Thank you, Director Shuto.
I would just echo that. I mean, years ago, we were exploring the idea that it just doesn't make sense that you have a school bus and a city transit bus. I think there's some bizarre state requirements that get in the way of efficiency, but that's not unusual. But whatever we can do to try to coordinate school efforts and city efforts, it just seems like it's the most practical solution. It's the most efficient way of handling it. It makes everybody a winner. So whatever you can do to get through all the crazy mazes that I'm sure are out there.
Yes, with the different funding sources, but it does seem like the state has your same opinion and is kind of pushing this angle as well.
Thank you. I don't see any other directors with questions or comments, but I do see a hand up by Justin. So I'm going to open this up to public comment. Justin?
Thank you, Laura. I know this is a very long time and I was so leaning for get this back in person. Last time I was at my meeting one time and my bus did not stop and I missed that bus. And I wish we can have a way that driver can to wait for a little bit longer. When I get out, I can cut the first bus. So the way we can do that, we can just do that sometime. I just talked to backup and a couple of people in the office, and that bus never talked to me. So I do want to see what we can do.
Oh, yes, Justin, I remember you were coming, you were trying to catch the Route 11, right? Going southbound, and your meeting was later than the bus arrival time. And then you had that kind of hour wait time then as a result. And so, yeah, we can look at the Route 11 schedule when we do our June look and see if we can more accommodate that schedule. And we just kind of have to look at it in the grand scheme, right? Because we can't run, whatever, one every 45 minutes, say. But I think we can make that work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Justin. And not seeing any others, I think we're ready to move on to item 10.2, which is also an informational item. It's our federal and state legislative update by Executive Director Kate Miller, pages 99 to 109.
Wrong button. Not battery operated, so we're good. On the federal side, one of the concessions that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy made with the more conservative side of the Republican Party is the new rules package, which covers a number of hurdles that will influence legislating in the 118th session. Key is the cut as you go or cut go measure. Under the cut go, bills cannot increase mandatory spending over the 5 or 10-year budget windows. And even if they are offset by our other spending measures, other rules in the package ban the use of budget reconciliation process to pass legislation that would result in net reduced spending. In addition, any bill with spending implications will require the Congressional Budget Office to provide estimates of the economic impact for major legislation. The rules package also bars general appropriation bills from increasing the amount of provided for an unauthorized spending item. So that could potentially affect some of the congressionally directed funding. And the rules will also delay and hamper new legislation from being passed, but also have a long-term effect on the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is the authorization bill that funds transportation. So we will continue to monitor that. Appointments, transportation and infrastructure leadership appointments include Sam Graves, Republican from Missouri, and as the chair, and Rick Larson, a Democrat from Washington, ranking member. Relevant subcommittee appointments include Rick Crawford as a Republican from Arizona on the Highway and Transit Subcommittee. Senator Maria Cantwell will continue to chair the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. And Senator Roger Wicker, a Republican from Mississippi, will serve as the ranking member. Other key changes in the Senate is the appointment of Senator Patty Murray, Democrat from Washington, who will assume the Appropriations Committee chair. There is still no agreement on raising the debt ceiling, and Treasury Secretary Yellen has warned that this will significantly impact interest rates for mortgages and credit cards and would be economically catastrophic. She is advocating to Congress to raise the debt ceiling without conditions to avoid this economic catastrophe. On the state side, the LAO, the Legislative Analyst Office, issued an overview of the governor's budget proposal. The LAO's report was generally supportive of the approach, but noted concerns that revenue projections may be too high, and recommends that the legislators reduce the one-time temporary spending that was adopted when there was a significant budget surplus. The governor's proposal makes a number of cuts to key transportation programs, but also shows an increase of 8.6% in the gasoline excise revenues and 11.1% in diesel excise tax revenues. This is result in roughly 8.4 million to the jurisdictions for local streets and roads funding coming from the HUTA, which is the Highway User Tax Account. And it will also increase the state transit assistance revenues. So we use those for transit operations. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Miller. Any questions for Director Miller? Not seeing any. We're about to go to our item number 11, but I do want to go back and let Kathy Alexander, our extraordinary staff person, that you were recognized by Executive Director Miller when you were out there dealing with the fire alarm. She's going to share that with you, and we thank you for all your hard work. And I personally thank you for all your help. So item number 11 is future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items?
Not so much that, but when's our retreat? Is it the April one? Or
It's in May. May
Okay.
12th, is that the right date? 17th, sorry. And it will start at 8:30 in the morning, and it should be over by 1, and it will include a tour of the maintenance facility.
Thank you very much. Good question. Okay, so it's time to adjourn. It is now, I believe, at 2:29. We're getting out of here early with our next meeting being March 15th at 1:30. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second,
Okay.
Garcia.
We had a motion and a second. I realized we don't really need to do the whole motion roll call, do we? No, we don't. Okay, so everybody's excused. Enjoy this beautiful day. We'll see you next month.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.